It is a sunset tax. It cannot be extended by the city council or by management. It could only, basically, is in the hand of voters. So it will go away after 10 years. A citizens advisory committee reviews the tax expenditures, and the additional city council direction, the council basically passed a resolution saying we want more reporting, we want financial review, and also there is their intent to prioritize public safety and infrastructure funding for those dollars. Measure B is a rainy day fund. Essentially, it's a separate measure that if this Measure A passes, it would help balance future budget shortfalls, where 1% of any new revenue coming in from that tax would go into a rainy day fund to be able to protect for future deficits. Some facts about the transaction use tax, the sales tax. 1% generates $48 million a year. When it drops to 0.5%, it essentially generates $24 million a year. What that means for a normal person is about $68 a year, or $567 a month. We would have a total sales tax of 10% for 6 years, go down to 9.5, and then drop down to 9% by year 10. Sales tax is paid by everybody. It's paid by businesses, by governments, by residents, and we also have 6.5 million visitors that come to Long Beach every year that would pay it as well. And for perspective, an additional tax on a $10 item is about 10 cents, we often get asked, how would Long Beach compare? So if you had a sales tax, where would we compare in the marketplace? So we looked at various tax rates, and what's important is that cities get funded not just by sales tax, but really by the big three taxes that most cities either have or comprise the bulk of their revenue. That's property tax, sales tax, and utility users tax. And all have slightly different rates. We've looked at about 27 small, medium, and large cities and looked at the average total tax paid. When you add those three things, where would we fall? We're currently 14 of 27 cities, so about right in the middle. With a 1% increase, we would go to about 12 of those 27 cities, so not at the top, not at the bottom. And we often get asked, well, if you have a 10% sales tax, would somebody go to another city for all their purchases? We've asked our sales tax consultant, they really are experts in sales tax, and they say that buyers primarily look at the best overall price, they look at experience, and they look at convenience of local shopping. Those are your three big things that really drive your sales. And then they're not historically sensitive to sales tax, but sure, there are some people who are willing to drive a long ways for a different sales tax, but you also, at least when you go out to shop, you kind of look, where can I get the best price? How can I get there? How is it convenience? And then tax is kind of the thing you look at after all that. What do you get for the money? The mayor and council have stated that their priority is public safety and infrastructure. So that was what they stated when they passed it. That's what they stated ever since. We are putting together our budgets right now, and one of the things that we would look and we would recommend, the police department would recommend, if there's additional revenue, their top priority is restoration of South Division, so going back from 3 police divisions to 4. The fire department would recommend Fire Engine 8. That is the fire engine in Belmont Shore, as you heard your fire chief talk about. Even though it would be restored in Belmont Shore, it's a system, so restoring an engine anywhere in the system helps everybody's response times. There would be infrastructure projects, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and specific projects and programs really are going to be reviewed each year as we go through the public process. Every year you put a budget together, you look at all the specific projects and programs. So we got to ask some questions about what would the city invest in if additional revenue were available. Your city staff put together a list basically based on data. We went back and we looked at high priority projects using data. We have a pavement management plan. About 2 years ago, we ran a really cool piece of machinery down every single street, and it basically recorded the need on every single street and did it empirically. We did that for every street throughout the city, local streets, arterial streets, and we have actual data to say this street needs to be redone, this street needs an overlay or a slurry where you basically put some, a cover on top of it to extend its life, and this one is in good shape. We're doing that as well for sidewalks, so we're going to be spending money to do the exact same thing on sidewalks. We looked at fire stations, stormwater, infrastructure, libraries, and parks and community centers, and developed a list of 150 in projects that could be accomplished in the short term to improve our infrastructure. All of this is online. This takes way too long to go through in a community meeting, but I wanted to give you a sense of the major categories. About $90 million in streets would be the largest amount of street work in a generation. $15 million in sidewalks. That's about 5 times what we spend, or that's about our 5 times what we spend in a year, or what we would have spent over 5 years essentially. Alleys, we don't have an alley program. We never have had a constant or a dedicated alley program. We would recommend putting about $5 million for the worst alleys. Stormwater protection, these are mostly your pump stations, so when that water flows down the street and goes in, it all needs to flow to a pump station, and that's what provides your neighborhood's stormwater protection so you don't get flooded. So that gets pumped into the rivers or the lakes. Those are in dire need of upgrades, and so $5 million there. Public safety infrastructure, these are things like your crime lab, your police stations, your academy. The academy is in trailers, been temporary trailers for over 20 years, and it's time we do something about that temporary trailer. And plumbing and concrete, that type of work. Libraries, about $3.6 million in just about every branch throughout the city. Water conservation, we currently have in our parks, everybody I'm sure has seen that we water parks sometimes when it rains. That's not because we want to do it, it's because it takes us 5 days to shut down the entire park system. From the minute we say go, we have to go out manually and shut down every single hydraulic system, and then spend 5 days turning it back on again. This would essentially give us an automated, every single controller would be automated. We could turn it off and also use data to find where there's leaks. Community facilities, these are parks and things like the Expo building and all these community centers that we know that need improvements. About $18 million in park improvements. There's a long list. Those are restrooms and sports fields. We've all been to restrooms that need upgrades and playgrounds that need upgrades, and there's a long list of those. Investing in our downtown parking garages, and also investing in our tree trimming. I know we all have tree trimming needs, especially in our parks. Our parks do not have a tree trimming cycle. We have those on the streets, or on the street trees. We do not have a tree trimming cycle in the parks. Next page. Essentially, we've mapped it all out. This is all available at longbeach.gov, where you can take a look at the maps and take a look at all those projects. But essentially, everything you see in red is a street that would get fixed, all based on that pavement management plan, and then every other project is mapped. So what's next? So I'm at the end of my presentation. We'll get to questions, but essentially, taxes can only be raised by a vote of the people. Your city council can't raise taxes. That's not allowed in California. It really is up to voters. Voters are going to decide on June 7th whether to approve or reject the measure. We're going to develop a balanced budget no matter what. So whether voters approve that or deny it, the city of Long Beach is going to, and your city staff are going to propose a budget to the mayor and city council that's balanced and make reductions as necessary. And then any funds will be reviewed by the mayor and council each and every year through that annual budget process with participation and review from the Citizens Advisory Committee.